Hello, Tammy here from Shady Paddock Farm in Central Texas. I'm getting ready to do an AccuMast test on one of my goats, Nessa. This is a test that can basically diagnose the pathogen that is causing mastitis in your goat. This is what it looks like. I discovered these several months ago and they were relatively inexpensive. So I thought, what the heck? I'm going to grab a pack of these and keep them on hand in case I have a problem. And since I have an on-farm lab, I'm all set up with an incubator. So I'm good to go with utilizing this Petri dish, which looks like this. The reason that I'm doing this test on Nessa is I do screening with California mastitis test on any of my girls that are in the milk line. My girls that don't have kids on them get tested once a month, and the girls that do have kids on them get tested weekly, since they are at a slightly increased risk of developing an udder issue since they've got those kids nursing on them during the day. I record all of those results so I can trend when someone has a change in the CMT. And Nessa spiked a little high the other day when I tested her, and she had also recently had a drop in her milk production. Not significant, but a little bit. So I thought, maybe I'll just go ahead and try this test out. I don't think that she has mastitis. I believe the reason that she spiked on her CMT is because she's very far into lactation. She's coming up, I believe, on 600 days. It is very hot outside, and I think that she is just tapering off her lactation naturally. And sometimes as lactation tapers off and the capacity of the udder is a lot less, you can get a higher CMT. So I think that's what's going on. But since I have this AccuMast, and it's actually, these plates are getting ready to expire on September 13th, I'm going to go ahead and test it and just play with it a little bit, see what we come up with. So I did do a bacteria count on her milk individually, and it was perfectly fine. She had no coliforms and 10 colony forming units on her standard plate count. So that is nothing to be concerned about at all. So I don't think there's anything going on, but what the heck? I'm going to give this a whirl. Let's do this test together. Okay, I've got my supplies out here. I've got my Petri dish. I have my sterile swab. You have to use a sterile swab because you don't want contamination outside of what could potentially be in this milk to impact the growth in this dish. And I've got my milk sample. This was collected in a sterile container, and I did clean the teat really well, and I was very careful not to contaminate the end of the teat after it had been disinfected. I took the lid off of this, being sure not to contaminate it, and squirted milk carefully down into this without contaminating the top of this. We want to keep this sample as pure as possible so that we don't get contamination in our little Petri dish. So I'm going to loosen this up. I've got gloves on. The instructions did not say to use sterile gloves, so I've just got gloves on. And what I'm going to do is open this sterile applicator, and you want to be careful that we're not going to contaminate it. So we're going to peel it back, and then we're going to pull the swab out, and just going to agitate this milk a little bit here. I'm going to unscrew the top. Get a sample. I'm going to go straight down in there. And then I'm going to start at the top of my dish here and just paint across it with my sample all the way down to the bottom. Now I'm going to rotate this around, reapply milk. going to paint this down. Reapply milk. And I'm going to do this last chamber here. All right. Now, I'm going to put this into my incubator at 37 degrees Celsius for 16 to 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow and we'll look at the results. Hello again. It is the next day and I have pulled my little petri dish out of the incubator, and we have good and bad news. So the good news is Nessa grew nothing, which is what I kind of anticipated was probably going to happen. So I don't have to get my vet involved and all that business. Most likely what is going on with her is what I suspected. Her milk production has just plummeted down. She, of course, has no signs of illness or anything like that. So I can stop worrying. So that's the good news. The bad news is I don't have anything cool to show you guys. But what I am going to do is show y'all my petri dish here. It is, as you can see, it looks exactly like it did when I originally put the sample on here. You can just sort of see, if I turn it just the right way, how I smeared the milk on. So you can kind of just see the milk on the gel, but there is zero color change. If we had had a color change on these little streaks, what we would do is use this handy dandy color matching chart that came with the plates. And there is a section that matches each one of the sections in the petri dish. So they are labeled over here on the side with 1 dash, 2 dashes, and 3 dashes. And that correlates to the back of the petri dish has 1 dash, 3 dashes on this one, and then the milky one is the one that has 2 dashes. So what I would have done if there had been some change in color is I would have matched my section with the single dash. That is testing for staph species. And I could have matched this to see which specific staph species I was dealing with. And the cool thing about this is the big monster that anyone who has dairy animals worries about is Staph aureus. This test does test for Staph aureus, which is really fabulous. The section with 2 dashes test our strep species, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different strep species. And then the section with 3 dashes test for our gram-negative species. So that is like our E. coli, Enterobacter, those things. And there's 1, 2, 3, actually 4 different species. And then in the Pseudomonas group, there are 3 variations. So this tests for a whole lot of different things. And when I found these plates, I sent my vet a text and said, hey, look at this cool thing I came across. And she was so excited that I had the ability to isolate a bacteria that was causing me the problem without having to send out milk and wait for those results to come back. So in one day, if Nessa had actually had a bacteria that was causing mastitis, I would have known about that. I could have sent my veterinarian that data, and then we could have worked together to come up with an appropriate treatment plan. So that is all I have to share with you guys on this. Like I said, unfortunately, no color change to show you, but it's a super cool product, and I'm really excited that I have this technology here on the farm. I am going to keep these plates in stock because I just think that this is such a fabulous product to keep around in case you do need it. So I'm going to sign off. Y'all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.